Dear one, today, I invite you to sit with yourself, not to change, not to fix, but simply to be. You see, loving yourself is not a destination. It's a daily practice of choosing compassion over criticism. It's not about smiling through the pain or pretending everything is fine. That is not self-love. That is what we call toxic positivity, when we use positive vibes only as a mask to avoid the truth of our human experience, real love, the kind that heals, makes space for every emotion. Yes, even the ones we've been taught to push down: sadness, fear, disappointment. These emotions are not your enemies. They are signals, they are messengers, and when you listen to them, you reclaim your power. Self-love begins with awareness, with saying, I see you anger, I hear you grief, I honor you doubt. When you stop fighting your feelings, you stop fighting yourself. Affirmations, my dear, are not lies you repeat to trick your brain. They are gentle truths that you're learning to believe. Instead of saying, I'm happy all the time, say, I am learning to be at peace with how I feel today. That is powerful. That is honest, and that is healing. Set boundaries not just with others, but with the inner voice that tells you to pretend you're okay when you're not. Speak kindly to yourself. Rest when you are tired. Say no when your soul whispers that you must. These are acts of deep self-respect. And remember, healing is not linear. You will have days when the old patterns return. That does not mean you have failed. That means you are still growing. Let those days come. Let them go. Keep loving yourself through all of it. In this space of truth, love grows, and in love there is no need to fake it. Just be, just feel, just heal. You are enough even when you're not okay. Let's begin where we all must begin, by asking, what does it truly mean to love ourselves? Most people misunderstand self-love. It's not about vanity. It's not about spa days or saying affirmations while ignoring your truth. Real self-love is not an aesthetic. It is a relationship, a deep, ongoing relationship with the self that is rooted in honesty, care, and presence. To love yourself is to relate to yourself with the same reverence you might offer a beloved friend. It is to see your own humanness and still say, I choose you, I accept you, I stay with you. That is real love. That is the foundation. Now our culture has made the concept of self-love confusing. It often merges self-love with the idea of perfection, with the idea that we will finally be worthy of love once we've improved enough, healed enough, accomplished enough. But let me be clear, self-love is not a reward for good behavior. It is the soil from which your healing begins. Think of a child learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they don't yet know how. But do we withhold love from them until they get it right? Of course not. We encourage them, we lift them, we remind them they're doing just fine. Why then do we treat ourselves differently? When we tie love to achievement, we create conditions that the soul cannot thrive in. We trap ourselves in a cycle of self-judgment, always waiting for a version of ourselves that we deem worthy of care. But unconditional self-love does not wait for the right version of you. It meets you where you are now. And let's be honest, sometimes loving yourself looks like facing very uncomfortable truths. It's not always soft or soothing. It can be confronting, because when we begin to love ourselves deeply, we have to dismantle the inner structures that told us we were unlovable in the first place. That takes courage, that takes truth. And this is where many people fall into the trap of toxic positivity. They try to shortcut the hard parts. They put a smile over their sadness, a mantra over their pain. But in doing so, they miss the point. Self-love is not about pretending, it's about integrating. It's about holding space for all your parts, the joyful ones and the wounded ones, the radiant and the raw. Psychologically, this is essential. Carl Rogers, one of the great minds in humanistic psychology, once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." It's not positive thinking that transforms us, it's radical acceptance. And from a spiritual perspective, when we withhold love from ourselves, we cut ourselves off from the divine flow of life. Love is the bridge between the self and the soul. It is not a luxury, it is the essential path to wholeness. So when we talk about loving ourselves, we're not talking about chasing happiness or forcing joy. We are talking about building a life in which our inner world is not a battlefield, but a sanctuary, a place of refuge, not resistance. That is what real self-love is, the willingness to meet yourself with truth, to hold yourself with compassion, and to walk forward, not because you are already healed, but because you know you are worth healing. So if you remember nothing else, remember this: self-love does not begin when you are perfect. It begins when you are honest. And that is where everything changes. Now that we've opened the door to real self-love, we must also become very clear about what it is not. Because in our modern age, especially in the spiritual and self-help world, there's a seduction that looks like love, sounds like empowerment, but leaves us feeling more disconnected from our truth than ever. I'm talking about toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is the insistence on feeling good at all costs. It's the pressure to be cheerful when your heart is breaking, to repeat "I'm fine" when your body is screaming for rest or your soul is asking to be heard. It's the belief that negative emotions are failures, and that if you were truly evolved, you'd never feel low, lost, or afraid. But this isn't healing, this isn't real, it's bypassing, and it's deeply harmful. Let me be clear, there is nothing wrong with wanting to be positive. There is beauty in optimism and incredible strength in hope. But when positivity becomes a mask you wear to avoid discomfort, or a weapon used against yourself or others to avoid vulnerability, it ceases to be helpful. It becomes a form of emotional denial. You cannot love yourself fully if you are silencing parts of yourself. Emotions like sadness, anger, grief, even resentment, these are not flaws. They are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are evidence that something inside you is alive and speaking. And when you dismiss these feelings, you cut off access to your own inner wisdom. From a psychological point of view, repressing emotions doesn't make them disappear. It buries them deeper into the subconscious where they influence our behavior, our choices, our self-worth without us even realizing it. What we resist doesn't go away, it becomes louder in more subtle ways. We see this in people who smile constantly but feel empty, in those who overachieve to escape the quiet ache inside, in those who say all the right affirmations but still feel disconnected from joy. That's the price of ignoring our inner truth. You see, love, real love, asks you to come home to all of yourself. Not just the bright parts, not just the pieces that look good on paper, all of you. And that means letting go of the need to be positive all the time. Now, let me offer something gentle and powerful here. You can be in pain and still be healing. You can feel sorrow and still be whole. You can be scared and still be strong. These are not contradictions. They are part of your humanness, and your humanness is sacred. There is a profound spiritual lesson in allowing yourself to feel. It teaches you presence. It teaches you humility. It teaches you empathy for yourself and for others. When you no longer run from your pain, you stop judging other people for theirs. This is how real compassion is born. So the next time you find yourself trying to slap a smile on your sadness, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what am I truly feeling? What part of me needs to be witnessed, not fixed? Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to sit with your sorrow and say, "You're allowed here." That is healing. That is love. And here's what I want you to remember. You don't need to fake the light to be worthy. You only need to stop hiding from your own depth. This is not weakness. This is the beginning of wisdom. So we've looked at what real self-love is, and we've made a clear distinction between authentic emotional presence and the trap of toxic positivity. But now we must go deeper, because it's not just about avoiding emotional denial. It's about learning to truly honor your emotions. All of them. This might sound simple, but in truth, it's one of the most radical acts of self-respect you will ever practice. We live in a culture that is deeply uncomfortable with feeling. We're taught to analyze our emotions, fix them, manage them, or push through them. But rarely are we taught to simply be with them. And yet our emotions are not accidents, they are not interruptions. They are intelligent messengers from the deeper layers of your psyche, trying to show you what matters, what hurts, and what's calling for attention. Sadness might be pointing you towards something that needs to be let go. Anger often reveals a boundary that has been crossed or a value that has been violated. Anxiety may be a signal that you are out of alignment with your truth or carrying too much for too long. Even numbness has something to say. It may be showing you that you've had to shut down in order to survive. These feelings are not wrong. They are not shameful. They are not obstacles to your healing. They are your healing. When we begin to understand emotions as messages, we stop reacting to them as threats. We begin to get curious. We begin to listen, and in that listening, we make space for transformation. Psychologically, this process is known as emotional integration. Instead of compartmentalizing or suppressing our inner experiences, we acknowledge them, we allow them, we bring them into conscious awareness where they can be seen, felt, and eventually released. This is not indulgence, it is inner work. It is how we mature emotionally, it is how we deepen spiritually, and this work takes honesty, because sometimes what we feel doesn't match the image we want to project. Sometimes the emotion rising in you doesn't fit the story you've told yourself about who you're supposed to be. But let me tell you, every time you honor a feeling, you reclaim a part of yourself. You are not here to be emotionally sterile. You are not here to be stoic in the face of your own life. You are here to feel it, to move through it, to evolve because of it. Now, honoring your emotions doesn't mean acting on every impulse. It means creating space within yourself to witness the emotion without judgment. It means saying, "I see you, I hear you, you belong." That act of inner witnessing is powerful. It softens resistance. It builds trust with your own inner world. And when you trust yourself to feel, you stop being afraid of your feelings. You stop needing to numb them. You stop needing to explain them away. You realize they are just energy moving through. And once felt, they shift, they teach, they liberate. So the next time you feel something uncomfortable, before you distract yourself, before you analyze or suppress, pause. Take a breath, ask yourself, what is this emotion here to show me? Then listen, Just listen, that's all. The answer may not come in words, but your presence alone will begin the healing. Because here's the truth. Your emotions are not problems to be solved. They are sacred guides trying to lead you home to yourself. And that is where real peace begins. Now that we've begun listening to our emotions and honoring their wisdom, we come to an essential tool on the path of self-love: affirmations. And not just any affirmations, honest ones that speak to the soul, not just to the surface. Affirmations are powerful. I've seen them change lives, but like any tool, they must be used with clarity and care. The words you say to yourself are not just noise, they are programming. They shape the way your mind perceives reality, and over time, they influence the emotional environment you live in. But here's what I want you to understand. Affirmations are not magic spells. They are not meant to plaster over your pain or pretend your life is perfect. They are meant to realign you with a deeper truth, especially when you've been pulled into fear, shame, or self-rejection. The most healing affirmations are not the ones that sound the most glamorous. They are the ones that feel true enough to believe. They are the bridge between where you are and where you want to go. Not a leap, but a step. Let's be honest. If you are in deep grief, telling yourself, "I am overflowing with joy," may only deepen your inner conflict. You might feel like you're lying to yourself. That's not healing, that's denial in a prettier outfit. Instead, try this. "It's safe for me to feel what I feel." Or, "I am learning to hold myself with compassion, even in my pain." These words still uplift, but they do so by honoring your present truth, not escaping it. That's the real power of affirmation, not to bypass your reality, but to gently guide it toward a more loving perception. This practice also has a psychological foundation. In cognitive, behavioral terms, affirmations work by interrupting distorted thinking patterns, those automatic beliefs we've carried since childhood that tell us we're not enough, not lovable, not safe. But for an affirmation to be effective, it must exist within a context of emotional safety. You have to believe on some level that what you're saying is possible for you. That's why I always say, start where you are. If you cannot yet say, "I love myself fully," then begin with, "I am willing to learn how to love myself." That willingness is everything. It creates openness, it allows movement, and from that openness, healing flows. Spiritually, affirmations are a way of realigning your inner world with the frequency of love. They are declarations not just of who you are, but of who you are becoming. And every time you choose to speak lovingly to yourself, especially when it would be easier to criticize, you are rewiring your relationship with your own soul. You are saying, "I matter, I am worthy of tenderness, I am not my pain. I am the one who is learning to hold it with care." So I invite you to make this a daily practice, not as a ritual of perfection, but as a dialogue with your inner life. Look into your eyes in the mirror and say something honest, something kind. Say something you can believe even just a little. And if it feels awkward, that's okay. It's not about performance. It's about presence. Because over time, those small, truthful affirmations become your inner voice. And when your inner voice becomes loving, your entire world begins to change. So, let me leave you with this. Speak to yourself as someone you are learning to trust, because the way you talk to yourself becomes the way you live with yourself. And that voice, your voice, has the power to heal. As we deepen this journey of loving ourselves, there comes a moment when we must look outward and ask ourselves, who and what am I allowing into my space? Because self-love, while deeply internal, must also be expressed in how we choose to live and relate to others. And this is where boundaries come in. Boundaries are not walls, they are not selfish, they are not cruel. Boundaries are clarity, they are self-respect in action. They are the invisible lines that define what you will and will not accept, not because you are trying to control others, but because you are honoring yourself. If you've been taught to please others to stay safe or loved, the very idea of setting a boundary might feel terrifying. You may worry about disappointing people, being misunderstood, or coming across as unkind. But here's something essential to understand. You are not responsible for managing other people's comfort at the expense of your own well-being. This doesn't mean we become cold or rigid. Quite the opposite. True boundaries are infused with compassion, both for yourself and for others. When you say no from a place of clarity, not defensiveness, you are actually creating more honesty in your relationships. You are saying, I care about this connection enough to be truthful. And more importantly, you are saying, I care about myself enough to choose peace over performance. Psychologically, boundary setting is part of becoming emotionally mature. It signals that you are developing a secure sense of self, not one that merges with everyone else's desires, but one that knows its needs, its values, and its limits. Without boundaries, we lose ourselves. We say yes when we mean no. We give when we are empty. And over time, this leads to resentment, exhaustion, and inner disconnection. But when you start setting boundaries, even small ones, you begin to repair that disconnection. You come back to yourself. You start recognizing that your energy is sacred, your time is valuable, and your heart is not an unlimited resource to be spent trying to earn love or avoid conflict. Now, I want to acknowledge something here. Setting boundaries doesn't always feel good at first. Sometimes it brings up guilt or fear or old stories of rejection. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're healing through old programming. And healing takes practice, it takes patience, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Because your nervous system starts to learn that safety isn't found in people pleasing. Safety is found in self-respect. Spiritually, boundaries are an act of alignment. They say to the universe, I am willing to protect what is sacred within me. I am willing to honor the life I've been given. And that willingness changes everything. You begin to attract people who respect your truth. You begin to feel more grounded, more at peace, more yourself. So start small. Practice saying no without apology. Practice pausing before you commit. Practice checking in with your body. Does this feel right for me? Let that question guide you. Let it become a compass. Because at the heart of it, boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about drawing yourself closer, closer to what's real, closer to what's nourishing, closer to what supports the version of you that you are becoming. And if you remember just one thing, let it be this. Every time you say yes to your inner truth, even if it disappoints someone else, you are saying yes to a deeper kind of love, the kind that lasts. That is the love worth choosing. As we near the heart of this journey into self-love, we arrive at one of the deepest and sometimes most difficult practices of all, self-forgiveness. And I want to tell you something very clearly, because this is where many people get stuck. You cannot fully love yourself if you are still punishing yourself. You cannot move forward with peace while dragging behind you the heavy weight of old regrets, past versions of yourself, or choices you made when you didn't know how to do better. Self-forgiveness is not about pretending you've never made mistakes. It's not about excusing harm or bypassing accountability. True forgiveness is an act of recognition. It means looking at your own humanity with open eyes and an open heart and saying, "Yes, I did that, and I see now who I was then, and I see who I am choosing to become." It's important to understand that self-forgiveness is not weakness. It is the courage to face your past without letting it define your future. Psychologically, it's a process of integration, bringing compassion to the parts of ourselves we've tried to exile, the memories we've locked away, the decisions we replay over and over in our minds. Hoping we could change the outcome, but we cannot change the past. What we can change is the relationship we have with it. Think about this. What if the version of you who made that mistake was already suffering? What if they were acting from pain, confusion, fear, or unmet needs? What if your regret is not evidence of failure, but a signal of your growth, proof that you now know better, that your heart has expanded? Louise used to say, "We are all doing the best we can with the understanding, knowledge, and awareness we have." And when that awareness grows, it's not an invitation to judge who you were. It's a call to honor the learning and evolve with love. Spiritually, self-forgiveness is freedom. It's how we stop recycling shame. It's how we create space for grace. Because if we cling to self-punishment, what we're really saying is, "I am not allowed to grow. I must stay stuck in this story forever." But you are allowed to grow. You are meant to grow. That is the nature of the soul. And when you truly forgive yourself, you begin to trust yourself again. You stop shrinking when you think about your past. You stop hiding. You show up more honestly in your present life because you're no longer trying to prove your worth. You've reclaimed it. This doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it begins with just a whisper, "I'm ready to release this." Sometimes it looks like writing yourself a letter or looking in the mirror and saying, "I understand you now. I forgive you." These may seem like small acts, but they carry enormous healing power. Because each time you choose forgiveness over shame, you open a new door within yourself. You soften. You breathe easier. You begin to see that self-love is not something you earn. It's something you return to. So I encourage you to reflect. What have I been holding against myself? What story am I ready to release? Not to forget, but to free yourself. Forgiveness doesn't change the past, it changes you. And let this be your closing truth. Your healing does not depend on perfection. It depends on your willingness to meet yourself again and again with love. That willingness is the doorway to peace, and it's open now. Step through.